me take this off. I don't like my glasses.
Well, hello and welcome to NICU Parent Network's launch event for our NICUnity initiative. I'm Kira Sorrells, the Executive Director and founder of NPN, and I'm here with one of my favorite people, good friend, colleague, and just overall amazing human, Gigi Kanyangwa Fernandez. Now, Gigi has served on our leadership team. She's our current co-board president and has been, a part of NPN from almost the beginning. I mean, it's been over a decade for sure. Gigi, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited. It's been a while since we last saw each other, and this is just, I think, just the perfect opportunity for us to be able to share what NPN is up to and what we're doing next.
Yes, definitely. Hello, everyone. I'm really, really excited about being here and also about this initiative. We're going to jump in and also about being here with you, Kira.
So let's just get right into it. So we are sharing our new initiative, the NICUnity initiative. And this is something that really, I think, our board, our members, our committee members have been working on, thinking about for a long time in a lot of different ways. And just to share briefly, if anyone is joining us that isn't familiar with NICU Parent Network, we are the premier US-based, mission-focused professional organization of NICU parent leaders who collectively represent NICU families across the globe. Together, we envision a world where every NICU family is an integral and essential part of their baby's care team. All of our work is guided by our strategic goals that are kind of categorized under these 5 buckets of inclusion and diversity, community engagement, advocacy and policy, financial performance, and professional development. And through all of this, everything that we do must reflect our beliefs and values of our organization, our leadership, and our membership. And this is the common thread that is really interwoven through every decision, interaction, everything we do. And that these include authenticity, diversity and inclusion, sustainability, integrity, and being collaborative. And this is really I think a really wonderful example, this initiative, of how we are really living this out. You know, our entire board, our committee co-chairs, and our members, they're always very intentional about ensuring that these goals and principles really are the North Star that guide us in everything that we do. And, you know, as I was getting ready for the launch, Gigi, I was really thinking back, like, when did this all start? And I think, you know, we've been talking about inclusion, we've been talking about representation for years, but it really, I think, got jump-started a couple years ago when we started the Let's Talk About Race discussion series that you and I have been doing about monthly for the last couple of years. So why was that specific series something that you wanted to get started for NPN and our community?
I think for a couple of reasons. One was it was time. I think with particularly when across the U.S., there are so many variables and barriers to discussions around race. Some of those barriers are just innate. We're so used to it that we follow this narrative that we don't even realize we're following. And some of those are kind of learned. And so I think it was just about time, because that was all around the George Floyd and everything. And I think one of the things that you and I talked about was, from NPN's perspective, we didn't want to just follow a trend. We didn't want to just, do something just to do something and it wasn't meaningful. So going back to your word earlier about intentionality, we wanted to be very intentional about what we did, why we did it, when we did it, how we did it.
Yeah.
So that
one
was
of my favorite. one of my
Go
favorite
ahead.
things that you always say is talk without action is just noise.
Yes, and there was a lot of noise.
Yeah.
There was a lot of noise happening, and then but there was not a lot of conversation. Um,
Ooh,
and
that's
so
true. That is very
yeah,
true.
and so if you were someone who was not in that space coming in, there was no real understanding of why was this so important? Why are people talking about it now? Um,
Mhm.
and if you were a person who was already in that community and saw a lot of the injustices, it was like, well, why are you talking about it now? It's been happening for, for 20, 30,
Right,
40, 50, 100 years. And so
right.
there was this dichotomy of, we were all talking, like you said, it was a lot of noise, but no one was
Mhm,
really having a true conversation, really listening, really
mhm,
pausing, and also really thinking about what are the ways that we can collectively move forward, even if those are baby steps. So
mhm,
that was the one thing. And then the second thing was because it was with you. And I think
mhm.
that's very important. Well, because for those of you not, who don't know, yes, we've had a long connection with Kira. Kira and I have had a long connection and friendship and relationship with as colleagues. But there was also a safety within that conversation
Mm,
that we could say things to one another that maybe were very different. Maybe rubbed us a little bit the wrong way, but we also knew it was coming from a place of compassion. And I
right,
think
right.
yeah, and so that's important when you're having these conversations is that you're not coming with your preconceived notions or ideas. You're coming with a sense of curiosity. And I
Yeah.
knew you were coming with a sense of curiosity. And
Mhm.
you, even some of the conversations you were saying, oh, I never knew that happened to you. I never knew,
Right,
but it wasn't
absolutely.
yeah, it wasn't a patronizing thing. It was just this curious way of, oh, wow, so it's happening to you,
Mhm,
it's happening to everyone else. And so those were kind of, I guess, the two. There were other things, but those were the two main things that made us think about what why we want to have it. And then, to be honest, because you asked,
mm.
you asked, and but you asked from a, a very genuine space, and so I
Mm,
knew that it wasn't going to be you know the token black girl
right,
saying this, because I was very clear that I don't my experience I can't speak for all black people, all black
right.
women, all black Americans, but I can share, because that's unfair. I don't have their lived experience and they don't have mine, but I can share some of the common themes. And so
Mhm.
um yeah, so that was the why.
Yeah. So, what we plan to do with this, really when we were trying to encapsulate what NICUnity means, it
Yeah.
really is this initiative that is dedicated to fostering a culture of belonging for all members of our community and really living out that commitment. Like you said, it's not a tick box. It's not okay, we crossed that off the list. We did our implicit bias training. Let's move on. This is something that we really intend to permeate every level of NPN, every educational offering, everything that we do and everything that we stand for. And, we've talked about this sense of belonging. Um,
Yeah.
we hear from members that first come to NPN that they didn't even realize that they were looking for a community, but they
Yeah.
feel. I've even had some people tell us that NPN feels like home to them,
Hmm.
which is really, I mean, it just makes my heart sing when I hear that from a member. And so we have this sense of belonging that's very important to NPN. We also know from our member feedback and our surveys that, what are they looking for? Like we always ask, what do
Yeah.
you want from NPN? And a lot of times, the majority of the people are looking for community and they're looking for connection. And that
Yes.
always strikes me because that is something that I think NICU parents and bereaved parents are also looking for in the midst of their experiences. They're looking for that sense of community, that they're not alone, that they're able to connect with others. So, can we talk a little bit about this sense of belonging, community connection? Because like you and I were talking about a little bit earlier, belonging means different things to different people. So
Yeah.
talk
Yeah.
to me about
And I
that a
think
little
it's
bit.
Well, and I think I mean, just a precursor before that, I think that's the beauty of what we're happening now, because when we started about, let's talk about race, we very quickly realized that there's is so much more than about race.
Right.
The sense of belonging, sense of community is so much bigger. And anyone listening today, I mean, just look at the families that you serve in their particular communities, the hospitals that you're in, your own experience, and how different that is. And so I think the sense of belonging. Um, been fortunate to also be a part of the Inclusion and Diversity Committee
Mhm.
for APN, and some of the conversations we've been having is really about this belonging, because we don't want it to be a checkbox. But
Mhm.
what is that? Because belonging is very subjective, and so it's
Mm.
very important when we're talking about belonging that we listen to the people that we want to belong,
Mm.
um, and understand what it is important for them. So when you're talking about the communities that you serve as leaders, if you're wanting to work with communities who've experienced bereavement, NICU, infertility, we also know, research has shown this too, that all these worlds collide
Mm.
into one. So it's very
Right.
important to understand that there's so much intersectionality within belonging. So you can't just sort of say you're only a bereaved parent, you're only an Asian American parent, you're only a rural parent, whatever it is. It's all
Mhm.
these things are combined. So the sense of belonging that we're trying to, and we haven't cracked it, and that's a good thing, because we don't have all the answers, and we don't profess to have all the answers. We don't want to have all the answers. We want those answers to come together when we start having these conversations.
Mhm.
We want to create that space. And so the sense of belonging that we've been having a lot of discussions around is about, what does that mean for our
Mhm.
members?
Yeah.
What does belonging mean to them? um, and really start listening to that, and then to begin to create spaces for those belonging spaces, I guess, for those conversations to have. So you may
Mhm.
have so which is what we sort of did when we changed even NPN. It used to be Preemie Parent Alliance.
Mhm.
And we realized very quickly lots of people didn't feel that sense of belonging, because it's like, well, my child wasn't a preemie, you
Right.
know. And so how do we change that? So now we know, even though statistically, we knew that, what is it? We have a lot of babies who are not preemie, who are in NICU. That was just kind of how we started. So I think that's just a really simple example. It's really powerful, but recent example of saying belonging. Once you hear from the voices of the people that you're wanting to be a part of your discussion, your conversation, your outcomes, your changes within the way that you're serving, um, that is that's it's really about having those spaces, and that's where that belonging happens. So I guess the answer to that, it's not a definition per se. It's more of a feeling, a very subjective feeling that people have. And one
Mhm.
of the things that we're saying as a committee is that it's okay to continually check that and say,
Mhm.
well, did we get that right? Or
Mhm.
is this person really feeling, is our language really correct? Are we, and if not, what needs to shift and what needs to
Mhm.
change?
Yeah.
Or also, who else needs to be a part of the conversation? So maybe
Right.
I'm not able to provide that, but maybe a partner organization or
Mhm.
another member or another. And so it's about really opening up the floodgates, if you like,
Mhm.
um, and being okay with that, being
Right.
okay to see what may come out of that.
Mhm.
Um, is very important. And I think, and so
Yeah.
what we were saying as a committee is that belonging, we don't really talk about it as much,
Yeah.
because you can't sometimes quantify it.
Mm. Mhm.
Um, but it's incredibly important to have that when you're having those conversations.
Right.
You
Absolutely.
know,
And I love what Erica, who is one of our inclusion and diversity committee
members.
members, put in the
Mhm.
chat box. She says that being different is an asset that is welcome, not something that makes you an outsider.
Exactly, Erica. And what Erica has also said is about it is what we have
Right.
and so that's very important. And for some reason we have, I mean, I see it in every almost every space, my workspace. You know,
Mhm.
what happens in the States. Also, I also look at things from a global perspective with where I am here. But it's we tend to, when we provide services and when we provide support, we put it in a little box or a little circle or a little whatever, but
Mhm.
it's a container of some sort.
Right.
And we want to burst that container open. We want to pour holes and stuff in it and let it pour out
Mm.
because that's where you get the richness and that's
Mm.
where you get those oh, I never thought about it that way. Oh,
Right.
let's think about it. Oh, why, why are we doing that? Why can't we do that?
Mhm.
And you just,
Right.
and it's okay to make mistakes within that space.
Mhm.
But you
Right.
are really actively trying to get to a point to where there's commonality,
Mhm.
where there's support, where
Mm.
there's a I get it kind of
Mm.
thing.
Right. Yep.
Mm,
Absolutely. So that's the why. Let's talk about the how. I think something that I love that our keynote speaker talked about at the summit last fall was that this work is about shining the light and passing the mic. It
mm,
isn't, I heard a story and now I'm going to tell you about it.
yeah.
But it really is, understanding. And I think that we understand, we at NPN understand the position of privilege that we have with our platform. And we hold
Mhm.
that with a great sense of responsibility and reverence. So, why, Gigi, is passing the mic so important?
I was just writing something in the chat. um, it's important because it it's others' voices, it's other people's power. You can't. I don't know what other way would you understand the experiences of other people um, if you don't listen. And
Mm-hmm.
what I was so secure earlier was that when we pass the mic, we need to be quiet and we need to really not just hear what the words that people are saying about these are the experiences they've had, but the nonverbal things that's happening within that space, the systems are that are in place that are providing, kind of pushing them further and further aside. And
Right.
so it's understanding. And with what the keynote speaker had like last during the summit last year, um was she told the story about Marilyn Monroe and Ella
Mm-hmm.
Fitzgerald, and
Right.
that was one of the things that Marilyn Monroe knew, that if she could come in to sit at the front seat of the club, Ella Fitzgerald, when she was playing, other people would come because she
Mm.
understood her position of power.
Right.
And so I was saying, we all depending on what groups we're in, depending on which part of our worlds that we're, that we're showing, we all have at some point some sense of privilege. And it's like, how do we use that?
Mm-hmm.
And how do we
Right.
use that in a way that's going to move the needle forward in a meaningful way?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Um, And I think with that, when I say that, I always come back to this, and people have heard this. There's power in the pause,
Yes,
and
I
I
was just
all
gonna
and
say that.
yeah,
That's something that you always say,
I,
and it's something that really sticks with me in a
yeah,
lot of ways throughout all kinds of parts of my life, actually.
yeah.
But
But when I
there
guess when we're talking about this, so if you are listening to people within your community, within your organization, your other leaders, other colleagues that you're working with, it is about really listening, and that's an
Mhm.
active listening to what's
Right.
being said and what isn't being said,
Mm,
not
mhm.
formulating in your mind before you speak. And you may, after that, we always say it's you're being curious about, okay, well, what's
Right.
happening, what's causing you to say that,
Mm,
and being having those conversations forward. So I guess I say that because sometimes we're uncomfortable with silence. and we feel like we have to fill it in
We have
with
to
all
fill
these
it. Right,
things.
right,
And we don't, particularly in this space when you're really trying to understand a person's perspective and their viewpoint. It's okay. And remembering when we're talking about these belonging conversations, it's not a one-time thing.
right.
You may have multiple conversations. Actually, it's encouraged to have multiple conversations because you're always learning something. You're learning something, the other person is learning something within that space.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's talk. We're going to just preview what we have coming up. So what we're going to be doing with this initiative. This is kind of putting all of our educational offerings under the umbrella of NICUnity. And so every month we'll be having various discussions. Some will be members only, some will be live streamed, some will be recorded, so that we're going to try to post them everywhere we can post them. We'll also, of course, house them on our website. And we're going to be looking at a wide range of topics, making sure that we are hitting those groups and those people and those experiences that are often silenced, overlooked, and underestimated. So in April, towards the end of the month, we're going to be doing a panel discussion with adult former preemies to understand those lifelong impacts. Because, I feel like when we started our work, over a decade ago, it was about bringing the parent voice to the forefront. But we rarely hear from the children and the adults who were in the NICU as infants, what life is like, how that has impacted them, and what are some of the misconceptions or the biases or the stereotypes that are often associated with adult former preterm babies. And then we're also going to be talking about for just our members in the Leadership Lounge with Allie Dunn, who is our Professional Development Chair, and Amy Finn from Project NICU. We're going to be talking about parents supporting parents and hospital partnerships. So I'm really excited about these two discussions, and then we will be posting the rest of our calendar for May and throughout the rest of the year as we continue
Yeah.
to develop out that those events.
Yeah, and I think, can I add something with that?
Yeah.
Just as when we're talking about the NICUnity part, so if you say, well, what would be different about that is because
Mhm.
we'll be in these spaces, we will be highlighting or bringing to the forefront um, other people. So we're talking about hospital partnerships. Who else needs to be there? What other parents need to be there? What other voices need to be there? And so throughout all the things that we'll be doing, all these educational things we'll be doing, we'll be asking those belonging queries, asking those inclusion queries that maybe are not necessarily traditionally in those conversations.
Mhm.
And so that's where the intentionality comes back. Where you're talking about, we're really wanting to make sure that every discussion we have, that we're at least bringing it to the forefront, at least trying to say, okay, well, what's happening within the partnerships that, for certain groups, et cetera,
Mhm.
et cetera. So that's where you'll, as participants, and also as leaders within that space, will begin to feel that shift and see that
Right.
shift. Those will be bringing
Yes.
different types of of questions within the conversation.
Yes, absolutely. And so these will be the members only events will be held on Zoom, and so that will be only for our uh, dues paying members. And then anything that we have that will be for the general public for consumption will be either live streamed or they will be recorded and posted on all of our social channels. Um, to stay informed and up to date, we have a new NICUnity landing page where you can sign up to make sure that you're on that mailing list so that you know what's coming up each month. You'll be able to find recordings there, and you'll also be able to view our upcoming events. So we're hoping to, spread that net wide so that wherever it is that you get your information, if you're listening to something, during your commute, you're able to access that easily. So,
Yeah.
Gigi, I'm just so excited to be to be doing this. I do really hope that that folks will notice that shift in these discussions, and we'll be asking for feedback too,
Yep.
because like we
Yeah.
said, we you have to always be open to evolving and changing, and you can't just pick your lane and then just stay rigid in it. There's got to be some wiggle room, some swerving, some lefts and some rights.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's always being staying curious. It's being
Mm,
really curious and understanding that diversity means just that. It means diverse. It doesn't mean that we're all speaking the same thing, but
mhm.
because then we're no longer diverse. We're just
Right.
what we are. But
Yes.
that we all are finding a sense of commonality
Yes.
within our different experiences. And so when you talk about like we'll be asking you, we will be the Inclusion Diversity Committee will be reaching out very soon to really have a better understanding of what belonging means to you as members. So watch that space very, very soon. We'll be doing that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, any other final thoughts or comments before we close up for today?
No, I just want to just encourage people to be open. This is
Mhm.
often when you talk about this space, people are just in clam up. We were just conditioned
Yeah.
because it's something different.
Right.
But I think it's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to,
Yes.
to do whatever. But it is about, one of the things I always value about you, Kira, is is having that safe space, that psychological safety where you can show up the way you want to show up. You don't have to show all parts of yourself. That's not what we're saying.
Mhm.
But I think it's really about being okay to have these conversations. And there's no, what we want to be able to do is empower you so that when you go back to your respective communities, you have the tools and the resources and the language and the support of VPN and of us together to be able to have, question what's happening within your space,
Mhm.
and also be able to provide solutions, potential solutions for your space. So I think the last thing is about being curious, being
Yeah.
open, and have fun with it along the
Yeah.
way.
Right. And know that we're here as a resource for you. So if you watch something, you read something, you listen to something
Mhm.
that we put out there, that we want to be able to support our NICU parent leader community. I mean, that's why we're here, because we want everybody else to succeed in achieving their missions in supporting and representing these families. So, know that we are a resource. We're here, and we do want to hear from you. So I just want to
Yes.
thank you, Gigi, for joining us all the way from Spain while you're on holiday. I'm going to let you get back to having a bit of fun with your family. And thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. And we look forward to seeing you next time.
Okay. Thank you. Bye bye.